You don't have to pay for expensive indicators, and most pro traders know this. Here's the TradingView breakout tool and strategy you can start using completely for free. But alright, so now let's jump into TradingView and take a look at some examples of good breakouts, but also some examples of fakeouts. And by the way, guys, if you for some reason haven't gotten started with TradingView yet, I do highly, if you have been watching my videos, you know that I highly recommend this platform. And luckily, I do have a special TradingView link. You can use that link to try out TradingView Premium for free for 30 days. And if you later on decide that you want to upgrade your TradingView plan, you will get a $15 bonus. So if you want to get the most out of TradingView, definitely use that link. But now let's take a look at two examples of breakouts. And the first pattern I want to take a look at is right here. By the way, we are currently looking at Bitcoin here on the 4-hour time frame, but you can trade breakouts on the daily time frame. You can day trade breakouts on the 5-minute time frame. It doesn't really matter. But first of all, with this particular breakout, I first want you to notice that we did saw a chart pattern. We had an impulsive move, then the price started to consolidate here. You can see we printed consecutive lower highs, while at the same time we printed higher lows. So this right here is what we call basically a symmetrical triangle pattern. And then, as you can see right here, we saw a beautiful breakout. And there are a few factors that made this breakout so nice. The first factor is that this actual breakout candle is what I call a momentum candle. A momentum candle for me is when the candle is at least twice the size, preferably 3 times as large as the previous candle. And you can clearly see that the breakout candle was, maybe 3 times or even 4 times as large as the previous candles. So that's the first thing I'm looking out for. Another thing I'm looking out for is the volume. And as you can see, if we follow the candle down to the volume, you can see that the volume bar of the breakout was much taller compared to all of these previous volume bars. So the important thing is not, how tall the absolute value of the volume is. What we're looking out for here is an increase in volume, and you can clearly see that we saw a nice increase in volume right there. So now you might of course wonder, how could we have traded this breakout? Well, in this case, we can enter at the candle close of the actual breakout. And a common stop loss is to either place a stop loss, below the pattern, so that we allow for a retest, or even below the lowest low here of the previous symmetrical triangle. And using a risk to reward ratio of 2, you can see that our trade would have looked something like this, and we would have locked in some nice profit. But alright, so now then, the next setup I want to take a look at was actually looking very similar. You can see that we had this nice impulsive move right here, and then the price started to trade in almost like an ascending triangle, right? So an ascending triangle is when we have a pretty sort of flat upper line, while we at the same time are printing higher lows. So we pretty much had an ascending triangle right here. You can see we had consecutive higher lows, right? And our highs were at the around same level. But now, this breakout was not as good, at least in my opinion. And the first reason is that if we follow this candle, you can first of all take a look at the volume. You can see that the volume was not really more, it was about the same level as the previous candles. So that is one sort of first warning sign that this breakout might not be as strong. You can also, for example, see that this volume right here was actually much less compared to this candle right here, just a few candles prior. So that is a first sort of slight warning sign. Another warning sign right here, remember what we're looking out for here preferably is that this candle needs to be at least twice the size, but preferably maybe 3 times the size of the previous candles. And you can see that yes, this candle is definitely more than twice the size compared to this little candle. But when it comes to this candle, it's not as clear. So this is, you know, a little bit more in the risk zone. So all in all, this breakout was not, you know, it was not a perfect breakout. It was not a super bad breakout either, but it was definitely a weaker setup compared to the earlier setup down here. But right, guys, so now I do want to switch the attention a little bit here. Alright, so this video was actually just a short clip from our full Breakout Trading Masterclass. To watch the full video, simply click or tap on the screen right here. I hope I will see you all over there very, very soon.